Call me out upon the water, the great unknown, where feet may fail.
And there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep, my faith will stand. So I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine.
Your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide.
My feet may fail, but fear surrounds me. You've never failed, and you won't start now. So I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am
You are mine.
Spirit, lead me where my taste is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. So I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine.
Well, that was something nice, wasn't it? You think Kyle and Cass again, everybody stand up and shake hands with your partners and tell everybody you love them. Tell
Yeah.
them you love them whether you love them or not.
You see right. Well, let me say good morning to each one of you. It's good to see you out today as we fellowship and love one another. In the New Testament, we are given words of encouragement, and especially today, as we approach the Thanksgiving season, I want to begin and I want to commend each and every one of you for your kindness and generosity throughout this time. From the 1st of November to the 1st of the year, we have an opportunity here not only to do good, but also to do good to those who need it. Now, the difference in doing good, everybody can do a good deed at any given time. But when you're doing good at the appropriate time, God even takes notice of those things, because even the lost have a tendency to do good to themselves. Every father and every mother, at least they should know through the laws of nature how to be good to their own children. And regardless of what may be going on in our world society, the total opposite is becoming more and more true. As a day and time that we live in now, that more and more parents are either strung out on drugs or they're addicted to one thing or another and are totally involved, indulged in self. And so the children are neglected, and the good work that remains it remains for the church to do. Now, beloved, in Matthew's gospel, if you weren't over there, listen, I'm only going to teach a little bit today. It's not in my intention to preach, because you're going to go forth to preach today. This is your opportunity to be the gospel, to be Christ's hands, to be Christ's mouth, and to be his loving compassion to your community. Your opportunity, both today and through the angel tree and through the blanket program that we have going on, and through all of the other things that we will do with fruit baskets and meals as we approach the first of the year. Let me say to you that it would be a shame, it would be a travesty for us as Christians to sit down with our families around a table and then filled with bounty, knowing how that we will sit there and we will indulge our appetites and indulge our sensibilities and laugh and enjoy one another, without thinking about our neighbor that may only live just a few thousand feet away from us, that in that household that there is not the same experience of joy and a full stomach, and having both parents or having family members gathered around the table to enjoy that meal together. It is a sad, sad day in this country when we not only celebrate the season of Thanksgiving, as we reflect upon our forefathers being blessed and allowed of God to come to this country, to suffer the hardships of Plymouth Rock, to suffer the hardships to build this great nation, then also at the same time, some 235, 40 years later, to sit down to a table of plenty with no hardship and ignore the hardship right outside our doors. Even the Lord Jesus Christ compels us differently. And he says in Matthew chapter 24, I'm going to read one verse there because I want to proceed on. He says concerning those days in which the end will come, he says that the prerequisite for that is the preaching of the gospel. And this is his remarks, and I quote, "And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." It's not just by word of mouth that we preach the gospel. That's not enough of a witness. Though the gospel be preached over and over, beloved, time and time again, it's not adequate. The gospel must be preached by mouth, and it must be lived in person. That is truly preaching the gospel. It's when we know how to say it, and then we know how to perform it. The gospel is more than just words strung together in a poetic form. Or maybe it matches and meets all the criteria for being adequate and to be just English, if you will. That it must be lived out. Gospel that is preached and preached only can be done by the lost. Even the lost know how to do good. Even the stranger knows how to be good. Whether he will do it or not remains to be seen. But when we know how to be good and we know what is good, and yet we fail to perform that which is good. But he says, this gospel of the kingdom, we might say it's more than just words of the kingdom. This way of living of the kingdom shall be furnished throughout the world, and then shall the end come. If you allow me the liberty to add to without taking away from the contextual meaning of this. Now, if you would turn over to the last of Matthew, Matthew chapter 28, and this is, of course, the Great Commission. And Jesus again speaking, and he says, all power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. Lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the world. And the closing benediction is, Amen. Now, this closing amen to that text that's added there, and you'll notice that it is in black, that it is not in red. Jesus didn't have to say amen. He was the amen. When you are God, you don't have to add anything else to your words other than speaking it. It is those who heard it and those that recorded it that add the amen. And that amen there in the Hebrew is simply a statement for I believe, not just for the God mote it to be so. It is the I believe. That's what the writer's adding to that. He's adding that he believes that Jesus said it and he therefore believes it. Now, from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 27, he says this about the coming judgment. Now, I've told you and said to you plainly that the gospel preached is not adequate if it's not lived. Because we can all say and tell people what's the right thing to do. Even the lost people can tell you what's right. And sometimes they look at Christians and say, you're not doing right. And when lost people can identify our faults and failures for us, it says something about their sensibilities and their knowledge about justice, true equity. When they can look at us and say, well, I'm as good as that man sitting in the pew because he does this, that, and the other thing. Because they know what's right. And so at the judgment of the Gentiles, here again the Lord speaking. And it says in verse 31, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory and all the holy angels with him. Now, this is speaking about his truly coming. And his coming not just for a rapture or redemption of the earth or a thrusting in of the sickle to reap that which is ripe to harvest, but it's actually a coming for him in judgment to prove men. With all his holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, the throne of judgment. And before him shall be gathered all nations. Now he's speaking here of the throne of Christ, the judgment of Christ. And it's different from the great white throne judgment, because in that judgment, those that are raised in that day are already sent to corruption. That's what it's for. It is the final, if you will, the final blow of the hammer strike upon the desk of the judge, declaring that there is no righteousness left in those people. And there'll be no adequate advocate of the Father. There'll be no perpetuation of sin. There'll be no one to stand there as their representative. If we stand before the white throne judgment, we are condemned to death eternally. If we stand before Christ's judgment throne, then we have him not only as the judge, but we have him as legal representation, the greatest that's ever been. Do you hear me? If Jesus be my advocate, who can hope to defeat me before the courts of God? Can you give God the praise and the glory? Who could hope to defeat you? But nevertheless, he says here, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. Now, the remarkable thing here is that there are goats in the flock of the sheep, just as there are wheat among the tares, just as God allows those who are hypocrites to dwell among those who are even righteous. The great admonition here and the great encouragement is this, that even as though they be strangers and may be estranged from God, as long as the hypocrites sit among the saints and the goats dwell among the sheep and the tares among the wheat, that there is hope of converting them. There's hope of transforming them. There's hope that they will be indeed changed forevermore. And God is gracious in that He allows the righteous and the wicked to dwell side by side. God is just in the fact that He doesn't condemn a man because he be lost. If he sit among the just, then maybe some of the just will become the justifier of that individual. Now, He says here with all these things as He applies what must be the very, as I said, the hammer blow of judgment. He says, then in verse 34, shall the king say unto them on his right hand, come, ye blessed or blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. And I love that, that God is all-knowing and all-wise and all-powerful, and that Christ was made the sacrifice for sins. Even before the foundation of the earth was laid, Christ died for the ungodly. And I'm glad that He did. I rejoice in that every day, in that He knew me yet before I ever knew Him, that He looked upon me yet before my eyes ever beheld Him, that He loved me yet before my heart ever learned the compassionate words of, Lord, I love Thee with all my heart, that yet Christ knew, and Christ has been, and He was prepared and has done and has completed all that precious work. He says, He would say to them, come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. It gives me great comfort in knowing that not only has God built a home for me called the New Jerusalem, but He's also built a kingdom, a home and a kingdom, a place to abide and a place to abide, and a place to make my habitation, a place to make my employment, if you will, a place to spend my eternity, a place that's prepared for me because God looked ahead and foreknew me. Not that He predestined me to either be born lost or saved. All men are lost in the beginning. But that He looked ahead and knew that soon the gospel would touch a life that did not yet exist, and Christ created that life to hear it. Even the lost were born for the purpose of hearing the gospel. There is no man, woman, or child that can escape it. And all the good seeds we sow, Mama, and our children, they do pay off over time. Be encouraged. There is a kingdom prepared. The righteousness of the righteous will not fail. It just doesn't happen. The love and kindness of God is great. He's generous to His children. If you understand generosity, if you understand the concept of one being generous when you've done nothing to earn it, Christ generously died for us so that even after we accept Him, there is hope for us in our frailties and our failures and our faults and our little slips of the tongue and slips of the mind and slips of the hand. Neighbor, there's none good, no, not one. Even the Bible tells us that. The only good that there is in God Himself and in the Son. Can you give God the praise? Thank God for His goodness. He said, a kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. We've established that that's always been God's plan. But right here's the part where we failed to make the connection, that in the gospel being preached, it must be lived. It's not just enough to be a called man and to preach as an oracle would and deliberate through vocal means of articulation of the tongue and of the mind, words that are easy to be understood or even sometimes hard to be understood. Words that condemn us or words that elevate us, words that make us think or words that make us think little. And sometimes I think that most of the speaking today that's done from the pulpit really makes us think little about ourselves. And the reason we're not better Christians today is because the words that are spoken from pulpits don't compel us to be anything more than what we are. We are creatures of habit, and sometimes creatures fall into bad habits. And he says, "For I was a hungry." And I speak this to your edification, to your praise, and to the glory of God, that here you make use of the little. Children, do you know that little is much if God be in it? Do you understand that concept? Do you understand that one kernel of seed sown, though it may be only one, yields 100 and sometimes 500-fold if it be God's gift? Here, by the year, you guys continue to make offerings and contributions toward feeding hungry people, not just at Thanksgiving. This is a day when you provide a meal that is synonymous with giving thanks for what our forefathers have done and what the Lord Jesus have done. But you continually do that by your giving year by year to make that possible daily. A daily administration for the hungry. And some would say, "Oh, but that's what we have public assistance for. That's what our welfare and Social Security and unemployment and public welfare, food stamps," and I can go right down a laundry list. But I'm going to tell you something. That's man's attempt to do what God has perfected. If that had been left to the church to start with, we wouldn't have any of this problem. Now that's going to take a while to soak in. And when it does, you'll get it. You'll get it. It's a godly principle. It's a principle that says that the righteous meet justice. Not only do they meet it and shake hands with it, but they deliver justice at the same time. He says, "For I was hungered, and you fed me." Now we know that the Lord Jesus, that God doesn't get hungry. If anything, his appetite is for the soul of man and not for the food that's on the table. And yet God is a provider of what he doesn't even partake of himself. Something to think about, isn't it? And he says, "I was hungry. I was a hungered," he says, "and you gave me meat." Not only was I hungry in the gospel, and you gave me truth that was unlimited, but you gave me something that would sustain me physically. Let me encourage you. This is by no means an ad or a jab at anybody. But beloved, our food pantry has been stressed to the max, and it's going to become worse. The needs of the poor are going to increase. And so we need to ask the God of increase to bless us so that we can bless the poor. And you say, "Well, Gerald, that ain't far from naming it and claiming it." Oh, it's a long way from that. Because you just only know how to name a little and you claim nothing. I'm telling you how that God's government works, and how that when you invest in him, he knows how to really invest in you. And that supersedes all of that gain and wealth nonsense, hocus pocus that's being delivered. I'm telling you that when we do those things that are necessary to sustain folk throughout the year, that God knows how to hear and answer our prayers. Friend, let us put the pieces of the puzzle together here. If we are indeed God's servant and God's willing servants, and we are faithful, do you think that God listens any bit closer to a faithful man's prayer than he does to one that's a little less faithful? Think on that. Do you think that the hands of God that heal bodies, restore marriages, and transform people are not the results of prayers of truly righteous people? Think on that. God asks from us so little and returns so much every time. You know, whenever we endeavor to do what God would do, we all wear the little wristband around that says WWJD. I'd like to burn one of those because that ain't nothing more than lip service. That's all it is. It's lip service. What would Jesus do? Oh, Jesus wouldn't wear one of them. Jesus would be doing it. Jesus don't need a wristband to remind him what he's going to do, and a Christian ought to have one either. Now, I'm not, I don't want to. Listen, if you got one of those things, keep it. That's fine. That's cool. I'm just telling you that, what can I say? For me, it's foolishness. For you, it may be the only source of recognition you can get. I mean, I'm going to leave that up to you, but I'm going to say this, that true Christians, they are reminded on a daily basis, because when they pray, they're praying for the poor and the hungry and the needy and the gospel and the preachers and the hello. They're remembering that. That's what Jesus would have them to do. So for me, the little reminder means nothing. If you've got that down to a practicing science, then you've got it. You don't need to be reminded. I'm not looking to see Jesus come back and his arms covered up with WWJD. What is it? Maybe his is WWGD. What would God do? What would the Father do? What would the Father have me? I'm going to tell you, neighbor, that when you are in right relationship, you care about those in your community who are in need, because it is a form and a part of the gospel of the kingdom of Jesus Christ. That's what it is. We need to not only educate ourselves, but we need to be wise as God's servants and realize that when we make it possible, we also open up a tender heart to the truth of the preached word. He said, I was hungry and you gave me meat. He goes farther. He said, I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came unto me. You see, and for those folk who have and have not the wristband on, this is their response to that. He said, then shall the righteous answer. You see, God already knows how you're going to respond. And when your heart's in the right place,